can't just take an off-the-shelf needle and stick it into somebody's brain without control. So now we need to actually engineer a whole device that can do that and deliver that pharmaceutical to that right spot in the body to be most effective.
Let's go!
Hey Joris, we've been talking a lot recently about combination drug med device products, and I was wondering if you could help us define a little bit more about what that actually is.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. A combination product or a drug device combination product is a product where you combine, as the name says, a device and a pharmaceutical together under one banner. And how you combine them is like in a regulatory submission, they are submitted under the same umbrella at the same time.
Sounds complicated.
It can be complicated, and there's definitely a couple of particular considerations that are associated with a drug device combination product.
Well, actually, just before we get into that, one of the questions that I often come across is why would you want to do that? Because it is complicated, because you've got the drug profile that you have to work with, and then the device, which is a complicated step, and then putting them together, you're doubling your complication. What would be the advantage of doing that, I guess?
Yeah, that's good. That's definitely like a good question, and because you take on more risk in the development process by having a new device combined with a pharmaceutical. That's also a new pharmaceutical product. But in these more complex pharmaceutical products that we see these days, the biologics that are coming out, they need to hit a very particular part of the body. So, for example, there is gene therapy products that need to hit a particular part in the brain to be effective, and there's not a lot of devices that can do that easily. We can't just take an off-the-shelf needle and stick it into somebody's brain without control. So now we need to actually engineer a whole device that can do that and deliver that pharmaceutical to that right spot in the body to be most effective. And another example is like a lot of these biologicals are more viscous. I think you spoke about honey before.
Yes, and we're in the lunchroom here. As a matter of fact, I always like to have an example of some honey on hand, and indeed, this is quite viscous. And if you think about a syringe, not many syringes and needles can handle a viscous solution like that.
Exactly.
So that would be a great example of where you need a bespoke medical device to make that work.
Yes, we've seen a lot of products coming out into the world that are wearable, so people can just over a very long period of time, very slowly inject themselves with the right pharmaceutical that is very viscous, and that's not so easy to do with a traditional device.
Sure.
So you really kind of pair up both of them, and the pharmaceutical is generally not effective without the device. So they need each other to be effective as a therapy.
Yeah, very good. And so one of the other things that I often wonder about with a medical device and drug combo is some of the considerations around regulatory approval, right? We all have done clinical trial work for a pharmaceutical and preclinical trial work with a med device, and then marrying the two. Is there any sort of considerations we might think about there going down that route?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of considerations, and one of them is a regulatory consideration when you develop these combination products, especially around pairing up the clinical trials.
Right.
So for a drug product, those clinical trials are generally phase 1, 2, 3, 4 clinical trials. And then when you hit phase 2 clinical trials for a pharmaceutical, that's when you want to also bring on your device. So sometimes in the first clinical trial at phase 1, you kind of make do with what you have off the shelf in a more clumsy
proving the safety of the product first.
Exactly, of the pharmaceutical. But then by the time that the phase 2 trial comes up, you want to have your device align with that. So for us, as a device developers, we have to make sure that we align with the milestones of our clients and their clinical phase 2 trials and onward.
Right, and that's where you have to have the device and the product married together at that point.
Exactly, and then the efficacy and the safety and efficacy is kind of tested together.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
excellent. Well, thanks for that, Joris.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Well, that was the end of Bio Break.
Have a great day.